All right, we're moving on to anatomy and physiology. What is the relationship between them and what do they mean? Let's find out. All right, here again are standards and objectives. If you really want to read them, pause it here. Okay, anatomy versus physiology. So anatomy is the study of body structure, so the parts, what they are. Physiology is the study of body function, how they work, what they do. Okay, so difference between anatomy, structure, physiology, function. Anatomy, structure, physiology, function. All right, so let's talk about anatomy. Remember, structure. So it can be broken up into two main categories, macroscopic and microscopic. So we're going to look at macroscopic first. Macroscopic means it's visible with your unaided eye. So no magnification, no microscope, no magnifying glass, unaided eye. It's also called gross anatomy. Okay? And there are three main categories within macroscopic anatomy. We have surface anatomy, so that's just describing structures as they relate to the overlying skin. So what you can see about those structures just looking at the skin. We have regional anatomy, which would be all the structures, like all the blood vessels, all the nerves, the skin, the glands, the teeth, if we're talking about the head. Okay, so in a specific body region, so the head, the neck, the trunk, the arm, okay, something like that. And then systemic anatomy is relating to the parts of a body system, so the heart and blood vessels as an example. Okay, and then remember we had macroscopic, which we just talked about. Now we're going to look at microscopic. Microscopic anatomy is only visible with magnification. And two main classifications for microscopic anatomy. We have cytology, the study of cells, so the structure of cells, and histology, the study of tissues, or the structure of tissues. Remember, everything in anatomy is related to structure, okay? Macroscopic, microscopic. Okay, so here are some examples. So you can see for gross anatomy, remember macroscopic anatomy, it's surface. So what can you tell about the anatomy based on what you see from the surface of the skin? Regional, looking at the abdomen, the thorax, the chest, the arm, the head, the neck, and systemic, looking at a specific body system. And then for microscopic, we have cytology, which is cells, and then histology, which is tissues. So what branch of anatomy is cytology part of? Microscopic anatomy. Remember, cytology is study of cells, structure of cells, and cells are only visible with magnification. Okay, there are many tools that are used to help doctors learn about a patient's anatomy. So there are tools for studying anatomy with a microscope. So one example is a light micrograph, and you've probably used a light or optical microscope before. So a light micrograph is simply a picture that's taken of something looked at through a light microscope. And then there's a transmission electron micrograph, and this is taken using an electron microscope, and the image is formed from transmitted electrons. Okay. And obviously this gives you some more detail, gets you to see a little bit more precisely the cells. And then a scanning electron micrograph, and it's an image that's formed from reflected electrons. And the difference with this is it's not showing anything inside. It's simply showing the surface, but it really gives you great detail. So here are two examples of blood and then the surface of a kidney stone, where you really see the surface. So with a scanning electron micrograph, you really get to see the structure of the surface. So which type of micrograph shows an image in 2 dimensions only? That's going to be a light micrograph. With the transmission electron micrograph, you're going to start to see a little bit more 3-dimensional, but scanning electron micrograph, for sure you're looking at a 3D image. We also can use sonography, an ultrasound, a sonogram. It uses high frequency sound waves. If you've ever had one, they use like a jelly, put it on the part of the body they need to look at, and then use sound waves to get a picture of the structure underneath. We can use X-rays, and it uses high energy electromagnetic radiation called X-rays to get an image of what is beneath the surface. Bones come out pretty clearly. The rest is not as clear. So if we need a clearer image, we're going to use other diagnostic tools like a CT scan. A CT scan stands for computed tomography. It uses computers and a rotating X-ray machine to give a much more detailed image, and it kind of views it as slices. And then an MRI scan, which is going to be even more in detail. It uses a magnetic field, radio waves, and a computer as well, and it's going to give you a real detailed image, much more precise than a CT or an X-ray. There's also a PET scan. A PET scan, it stands for positron emission tomography, and it uses a radioactive tracer. Often it's glucose, okay, and it shows the function of tissues and organs, so you can actually see where there might be problems. This is often used in cancer patients to see how the functioning of organs that are affected. And then we have DSA, which stands for digital subtraction angiography, and it uses a contrast dye to help you visualize blood vessels. Okay. So which diagnostic tool shows how tissues function? Do you remember? PET scan. Which diagnostic tool uses X-rays? Well, X-ray isn't on there, so it can't be that one. What is it? It's the CT scan. And now let's move on to physiology. So physiology is broken up into cell, special, systemic, and pathological. And most of them are self-explanatory. Cell physiology, function of cells. Special physiology is the function of specific organs. Systemic physiology, the function of specific organ systems. And then pathological physiology, which is often scrunched, and it's just pathology. It's the study of the effects of disease on function. Okay. Why do we even bother studying anatomy and physiology? Well, it provides a framework for understanding the way all parts, from molecules to bones to organs, interact to form us, a functional human being. So it provides a framework to help us understand how systems work together and how disease actually interferes with this process. We study them together because they can't really be separated. Form follows function. Function follows form. Okay, so the structure determines the function. So why should we study them together? I kind of just said it. Hopefully you remember. Okay, structure and function tied together. Form follows form and function. They're all tied together. And in class, we'd be doing a blue kit. And there you have it. There's some connections between anatomy and physiology, the relationship between those terms. And I hope you learned something new.